Well, hello there, challengees, and welcome to the second episode of the Always Better Challenge Show. I'm Joe Bedford, your host. The title of today's show is How to Be a Failure, and that may sound like a strange title for a show such as this, but it will make sense as we go along. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about some things, some developments that have happened since yesterday's show. And the first is that I now have viewers, I now have subscribers, and thank you so much to those of you who have reached out and subscribed to the show and supported it in that way. Of course, I thought I was nervous yesterday, but yesterday I didn't know, well, I knew I didn't have viewers yet. How could I have viewers when I didn't have a show yet? Now I know people are actually watching. That actually makes me more nervous. So hopefully I will not act more nervous than I did yesterday. The other thing, I've gotten some great feedback that I'm very appreciative of. Thank you so much to those of you who have done that. And those of you, you may see some changes already that I have implemented. First of all, I never realized how hideously ugly my basement was until I had to spend 30 minutes yesterday looking at it when I rewatched the video after I shot it. So I'm still in the basement, and this probably is going to be the main control center. It just works well. I've got some tools that I use, some notes up in front of me here that I mentioned yesterday, and it just works. I did put up a backdrop today so that you don't have to look at my ugly basement, but I'm still in my ugly basement. I got some great feedback on the camera angle, which I actually noticed that when I watched the show as well. It's actually my sister that pointed that out. You can always count on your siblings to give you the real deal, can't you? So I've brought, yesterday it was looking up at me a little bit more, and that looked a little bit weird, so I've tried to get it more head on today, so hopefully that's a welcome change. One other feedback that I received, and this was actually by far the most common comment that I received from several people, and I definitely want to address this, mainly because, at least for the time being, it's advice that I'm not taking. I'm doubling down on my original idea, and that revolves around the length of time of the show. I mentioned that I wanted this to be 30 minutes, give or take. It doesn't, obviously I have some flexibility there, but my vision was for a 30-minute show. And I had a lot of folks say, in different ways, maybe that's too long, maybe it would be better if it was shorter and you could be a little more concise. Maybe more folks would watch if it wasn't such a big time commitment, and comments along those lines. Doubling down for now, it may be the complete wrong decision, and obviously I can continue to monitor and revisit this situation later. Pardon me while I take a sip of coffee. We've discussed the show is unedited, and I've traded in my kombucha for coffee today since they didn't write me a sponsorship check. Shame on them. Thank you for allowing that. Several reasons why, after giving it careful thought, and by the way, still, thank you so much for the feedback, getting me thinking and making decisions. And even if I've decided to double down, I'm grateful that I had the feedback. It just helps. It helps to know what thoughts are out there, helps me to address them, even if I decide to go a different direction. One thing is that I feel like the longer format is a way to differentiate this show. It's a way to make this show different from some of the other things that are out there. And, it's always a balancing act. Maybe the reason that there's not more longer shows like this out there is because nobody wants them. And so in that case, I'm making the wrong decision. But maybe there is an audience for that longer content. And if that's the case, and if I can reach them and there are not as many options available for them, now they have another option. So that's one of the reasons. I thought, a way to stand out. And obviously it also gives me more, obviously a shorter format would be a constraint. I wouldn't be able to go in depth in as in depth in some things as maybe I'd like to do. So it gives options. So that's one of the reasons why the 30-minute format appealed to me. Another thing, and this is just more of a response to the comment of, gosh, maybe not many folks have 30 minutes to sit down in front of the computer or in front of their telephone or in front of their iPad and actively watch the show. That may be true, but let's remember there are other options. You can just listen to the show. As good looking as I am, there's not obviously much to look at this phase of the game. I'm sitting here in front of a backdrop in my basement. I did decide to make this a video show, which may seem strange given what I just said. And I don't know what to say, except I just liked the idea of you being able to look me in the eye and see my face while I'm talking. I feel like that's gonna just be another level of communication, which I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I just feel like it's different when you can see somebody that's talking to you. But you don't have to, you can listen. So you can have the show on YouTube, you can pop your earbuds in, and you can be doing whatever else you want to do while you listen. Honestly, that's how I consume a lot of content. I listen to a lot of audio podcasts, probably more so than video shows. But this one can, as I said, can be consumed either way, so I think that will work. The last comment that I want to make, and I'm going to grab another quick sip of coffee here. The other comment I want to make, and I want to be real careful how I say this. I don't want it to sound like I'm being, argumentative or anything like that. But if the thought is that, well, I don't have 30 minutes to sit and watch your show. Another answer to that might be, really? You don't have 30 minutes? It's a cliche. We all have 24 hours a day. It's what we choose to do with them. Do you have an hour to watch Game of Thrones? I bet some of you do. Now, not to say that my show is as entertaining as Game of Thrones, but I think you get my point. If the show is worthwhile to you, and if it's not, that's on me. If the show is worthwhile, if the show is giving you some value, if it's helping you to make your life better, which, as I've said, is the goal of the show, you don't have 30 minutes for that. Is Game of Thrones going to make your life that much better? That's you can tell me. So that was part of my mindset as well, and which sort of goes to another thing where we're talking about how good the show is or is not. Well, first of all, obviously, hopefully, every single episode is going to get better. I'm practicing as I go. I'm learning, and I'm committed to making the show better. It's going to get better. And the other thought that occurred to me is, if the show isn't good enough to watch for 30 minutes, then what would shortening it to 10 minutes do if it's not any better? If it's not worth 10 minutes, if it's not worth 30 minutes, is it worth 10 minutes? So those are my thoughts on that. I don't want to belabor that point, but I did want to explain that. Again, thank you so much to those of you who have given feedback, and I certainly will revisit this issue in the future because maybe it is too long. But for now, for those reasons, I'm doubling down. Gonna take my chances and see what happens. As I mentioned yesterday, one of my plans for the show is to start each show with a motivational quote or thought or inspirational quote or thought, something along those lines. And today's quote is this, and credit to Sarah Blakely for this quote. My dad encouraged us to fail. Growing up, he would ask us what we failed at that week. If we didn't have something, he would be disappointed. It changed the mindset at an early age that failure is not the outcome. Failure is not trying. Don't be afraid to fail. Love that quote. And it ties into what I said our title today was going to be, which is How to Be a Failure. A lot of people would think being a failure is a bad thing, we're going to discuss why not only is it not a bad thing, it is a critical element of success. Ask Thomas Edison, as we discussed yesterday with him. So why is failure not a disaster? Oh, I could have used this as the inspirational quote. It just popped into my mind. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's Rudyard Kipling, I believe, from the poem If. Now I'm doubting myself if it's Rudyard Kipling. This is the problem with doing the show live. You can't stop and look it up. The poem is called If, and one of the lines in the poem is, I should explain, it's a father giving advice to his son. And so to his son he says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. Again, a great quote. Failure isn't permanent. Success isn't permanent either. That's a good thing to remember as well. So that's my first point that I want to make. Failure is not a disaster because failure is not permanent. Again, all sorts of quotes are popping into my mind now. And this one I may butcher, paraphrasing. Failure is an opportunity to begin again more intelligently. I believe that's the gist of how that one goes. And that's the thing. Failure isn't permanent. Failure is a failed experiment. An experiment that you can learn from, and that your next experiment is going to be that much better, again, just like Thomas Edison yesterday, because of what you learned from the failure. Don't think of it as a failure. Think of it as something you tried that didn't work. That's a learning experience. I mean, that's life. Everything we do is an experiment. Or that's, again, the mindset that I try to keep. And I talked yesterday about how important I think mindset is. Treat everything as an experiment. See what you can learn from it. Another point I like to bring up when we're talking about failure and having the right mindset to failure and how failure is not permanent and how it's an integral component of success is the baseball analogy. Probably heard this one before. So let's use Ted Williams as an example. Ted Williams, Major League Baseball player, the last Major League Baseball player to maintain a batting average of over 400 over an entire season. That is a decades-long record that has stood. So obviously, I don't think anyone can argue Ted Williams, one of the best hitters of all time. But over 400 average, what does that mean? That means that when Ted Williams stepped up to the plate, he failed most of the time, right? Most of the time. He failed to get a hit over half of the times he was at bat, and yet he's one of the greatest. If that doesn't make the point, prove that failure is an important component of success, I don't know what does. Again, the numbers component of it too, the numbers game component. Every time Ted steps up to the plate and gets that failure out of the way, he's that much closer to the hit. Because 4 out of 10 times on average, he's going to have that hit. So he's got to get through the 6 failures to get to the 4 successes. You want to know what true failure is? True, real failure? The bad kind of failure? I can think of 2 ways to define that. The first way is not trying in the first place. Letting fear stop you. Letting the fear of failure stop you. If you don't swing at the ball, you can't hit the ball. So that would be a failure. That would be if you let the fear stop you from trying. And the second way you can fail is to try, fail, and quit. As we said, if we treat a failure as an experiment that we can learn from and that we can improve upon and build on, then it's not a failure. If we try and then we just go, oh, I didn't do it. Guess I'm not going to do it. Then that is a true failure. The quotes are popping into my mind left and right today. Another one of my favorite quotes. I'm going to use up all my good quotes and I won't have any for the next shows. But one of my favorites is, it's really, pardon me, shooting live, that happens. It's really difficult to defeat a person who simply refuses to give up. And I think if you think about that, that makes a lot of sense. So, the joys of being an amateur videographer. If your screen just did something weird, it's because I experienced technical difficulties while filming the first half of this episode. I stopped filming and I'm now filming the second part of the episode, and I'm sincerely hoping that I'll be able to figure out how to stitch those two together since I've never done that before, but let's not worry about that for now. Let's continue, and of course I completely lost my train of thought or speech that I was on before, so I'm just going to move on to the next planned segment of the show. I believe I said yesterday that one of the segments I wanted to do was where I discussed a resource that I used in my own goal to be better every day. And I'm actually going to talk about a direct competitor to this show, actually also a huge inspiration for this show, and perhaps one of the reasons, again, why I'm doubling down on the 30-minute idea. The show, or the resource that I'm going to talk about, it is a daily video show, and I did mention this yesterday, actually. It's called Darren Daily. It is produced by Darren Hardy, who is the author of The Compound Effect, and several other books, including The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. I believe he is the editor of Success Magazine. I hope I'm getting that right. Darren puts this show out every weekday. It is shorter than this show. It varies in length. Some of the shows are as short as a couple minutes. Some of them are close to 10 minutes. I don't think I've ever seen one that was 10 minutes or longer. His show is much more polished than mine, I must admit. It is clearly scripted, and he has a huge staff assisting him, which I am not lucky enough to have at this point. It's a great show. I watch it every single morning. Like my show, it's a video show, but it's 99% just him sitting there talking. But I do watch it every day. Again, maybe that was one of the reasons why I liked the idea of having a show where you could look me in the eye while I'm talking. I love this show. I start every day with this. Darren covers a wide variety of topics, but all very similar to what I'm trying to do here. Helping you be better, I find it motivating. I find it exciting. I find it energizing. And it's how I start every single weekday. If you would like to check this show out for yourself, the website is dd.darren. Sorry, I lost my place on my notes. How embarrassing. dd.darrenhardy.com. That's dd for Darren Daily, .darrenhardy.com. You can sign up for the daily updates there if you would like to. By the way, I am not, Darren is not a sponsor of this show. This show does not have sponsors yet, not surprisingly. Obviously, if I ever do have sponsors, they will be clearly identified as such. I also am not an affiliate of Darren Daily. Some of you may be familiar with affiliate marketing, where people who do video shows or podcasts mention certain products, and then if you purchase the products through a link they provide, they get a cut. I am not doing that at this time. So I'm simply mentioning this. I have no financial interest in it. It's something that I actually watch myself, and something that I thought might benefit you guys as well. And excuse me while I shift position there. I hope that wasn't too alarming. And I'm going to get another sip. During the technical difficulties break, I traded in my coffee for my iced tea from earlier today. How do I point it? Which, also not a sponsor of the podcast, also needs to send me some money for advertising. You guys. Anyway, enough about Darren Hardy. I'm going to talk about another resource that I use. And I think I mentioned yesterday that for my other resource, I wanted to use an actual physical product. Well, this one, it is a physical item. It's a book. It's actually two books. It is, which I will hold up now, the Freedom Journal, and the Mastery Journal. And these are written by, I almost said Darren Hardy because I'm still thinking about him, by John Lee Dumas. John Lee Dumas is the host of a daily podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire. Again, another huge inspiration for my idea of being daily, but he actually does it 7 days a week. I'm not even that crazy. But he's also a great show. Again, if you're interested in checking him out, I didn't put his website up here. I believe it's eofire.com, but at any rate, you could just search for Entrepreneurs on Fire and you'd be able to find it. And it's an audio podcast, so you can look for that on iTunes if you're interested in that, or your podcast aggregator of choice, Stitcher. I'm not even sure the other one's out there. I use iTunes. So the Mastery Journal and the Freedom Journal. These are, as the name suggests, journals more than books. There's some information, but a lot of it's intended for you to fill it out with your stuff. I can talk more eloquently or whatever, or more in depth, more knowledgeably is the word I was looking for, about the Mastery Journal than the Freedom Journal, because I've definitely used and worked through the Mastery Journal for a few weeks now. The Freedom Journal I haven't quite explored to its fullest extent yet, but I'll discuss both of these. The Mastery Journal, excuse me, I'm looking here at it, which is why I'm looking off weird, and I know that probably looks weird to you. The goal of the Mastery Journal is to help you master productivity, discipline, and focus in 100 days. And I love the way John Lee has done this. What I think is so helpful about this is, I don't know how much there is in this book that's things that you don't know, but there's something very helpful about a framework. I've found this with so many things in life, like even something as weird, but this is what occurs to me, as cooking. A resource I may talk about in another show that Judy and I use, my wife, it's called eMeals, and we use it for our menu planning, for want of a better word. It's not like, and of course now off the top of my head, I can't think of all those companies that are out there that actually send you food ready to be cooked. HelloFresh, I guess, is one, and what's the other one? I'm totally blank right now. So it's not like that, but it just provides you with recipes for a week. It comes out on Wednesday. You get an email with these 7 recipes. You can choose different types of food. And on the surface, that sounds like that. Why would that be such a great thing? You know, buy a recipe book, right? But it's so funny how helpful I've found it, because if I had a recipe book, I'd have to pick which recipes each week. I'd have to be like, well, which recipes do I want to pick this week? There's something helpful about just having somebody tell you, especially, you know, when it works, when they're good recipes and you enjoy it. So the idea of having a framework, having a framework like that has helped us so much with our meal prep. Having the framework of the Mastery Journal has really helped me, as John Lee Dumas promises. I feel like I've become much more productive, disciplined, and focused since I've been using it. It arguably helped me get to the point where I felt like I could tackle this project that I'm working on right now, this show. So it's a framework. It's a daily diary, and I can probably talk a little bit more eloquently about it if I've actually got it in front of me. So for each day, he gives you a motivational quote. He has you list out your morning routine. He has you do that the night before. All the items that you need to accomplish on your morning routine. And routine and checklists, that's definitely something I'm going to be talking about a lot on future episodes. I think that's a huge tool that I don't think a lot of people use as much as it could be used. So you list your morning routine, the desired start time and end time for your morning routine, and then you're going to put your actual start time and end time if it's different. He has you list something that you're grateful for every day, and then he has you break down your work time into sessions. He gives you room here for 4 sessions. I imagine you could actually do as many or as few as you wanted. And he uses a technique that I believe is called the Pomodoro technique, which is set time frames of focused activity and set time frames for refreshing or resting, whatever you want to call it, in between those focused work sessions. So he wants you to actually decide how long you're going to focus for, whether it's 30 minutes, 60 minutes. I think he's got some weird number that he likes, like 47, some random thing like that he says after experimenting he determined was perfect for him. So you actually start a timer for whatever you've set, and you focus like a laser, I'm pointing at you, there, laser, on your goal for that amount of time, and you don't allow anything to distract you. If an email comes in, you deal with it after your focus time is up. You don't let anything get you off task. That's the goal. So you do your 4 or however many sessions you do, and then he has you give yourself a score, 1 to 10, in the categories of productivity and discipline. How much did you get done, and how disciplined were you at remaining on task and focused? You then say, one way I can become more productive, one way I can become more disciplined, and you're doing that each and every day. I like this, even though this may sound like overkill perhaps, that every day you're having to come up with yet another way to be more disciplined and more focused. The thing is that with important, tough questions like that, with dealing with obstacles, it can be so helpful to ask those questions over and over and to really have to dig deep for the answers. The first answers come to you easily and quickly, but so many times it's those answers that you really have to dig for, that's where the gold is. That's where you really can hit a breakthrough a lot of times. So I really like that aspect of what John Lee's done here with the book. He has you list what you're most proud of that day, in other words, celebrating your wins, and then you fill out the your plan for tomorrow as far as your morning routine, desired starting and ending times, and one goal that you'll accomplish tomorrow. He's asking you the day before to commit to one goal that you're going to accomplish the next day. Very helpful in focusing, I think. So that's the Mastery Journal. The Freedom Journal, as I say, I can't discuss it as much because I haven't really dug as deep into it, but it's along the same lines. The difference is the purpose is to help you accomplish a single number one goal in 100 days, and he uses a very similar process for doing that. So the Freedom Journal, the Mastery Journal by John Lee Dumas. These are available on Amazon and wherever else they're available. Again, I have no financial interest in this. It's just a tool that I've used and found helpful. And they look real. I'm just glancing at my notes and thinking of things I may have left out. The books look really nice, and they look fancy, and they have gold, what do you call this, leaf or whatever, and little ribbon bookmarks. And it's like an actual book that you write in. I mention that just because you may not think that's important, but it kind of can be. If you've got a really nice tool that you enjoy using, it's going to make you that much more likely to use it. The other thing about this book is helping you establish good habits. Again, this is going to be a huge theme of my show, the importance of good habits. Good, just to say real quick, good habits, and this is my own made-up quote. I don't think I'm stealing this from anybody else. Good habits are a way to put your success on autopilot because it's not something you have to think about each and every time you do it. It's just your habit that you do every day. I do this thing every day that gets me closer to where I want to go, and I do that thing every day that gets me closer to where I want to go. So the importance of habits, something we will definitely be revisiting in the future. I think that's enough about that. And we're getting close to our 30 minutes, so I can't remember if I mentioned this yesterday or not, but I decided it is called the Always Better Challenge Show. I want to end each show by giving you a daily challenge. I want to challenge you to actually go out and do something with the thoughts and the ideas that we've discussed. My challenge for you today is I want you to set a goal for yourself in your life, something that you want to accomplish that's going to make your life better. But there's a caveat. There's a condition that I'm putting on it. I want it to be a scary goal. I want it to be a stretch goal. I want it to be, think of the first goal. Like, let me just think of an example here. If your health is a concern to you, you might really quickly say, okay, I want to lose 5 pounds. Well, if you have 10 pounds to lose, then why not make the goal 10 pounds? That's just the one example that popped in my head. But I hope you get the idea of what I'm trying to say here. Again, I'm today with the quotes. I'm full of them. And I don't know who said this one, but it was actually on John Lee's show that I heard it. So it may be his. I don't know. Good is the enemy of great. There's nothing, nothing wrong with setting a good goal, but is there an even better goal that you can set if you're willing to stretch just a little bit and take just a little bit more of a change? And the other point I want to make about goals that ties in with the episode, with the title of the show and the theme of the show about, how to be a failure. If you've set a goal that there's no or almost no chance that you might fail at, then you know what that means to me? You're playing it too safe. You're playing it too safe. We said, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to reach. Even if you don't quite make it, you'll learn from it. And again, today with the quotes. What's the one about if you shoot for the moon and you fall short, at least you'll reach the stars, or something along those lines. I apologize, I'm paraphrasing. So that's your challenge. Set a goal and make it a stretch goal. Make it a scary goal. Just a little scary. It doesn't have to be a big, huge scary, unless you're feeling, cocky. So that's it. That's the show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for those of you who have subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Come on. There's a little button down there somewhere. Doesn't cost you anything. Go ahead. Do it. Also, please share. Email your friends, Facebook your friends, tell your friends, call your friends, send up smoke signals. I don't care. Let's get the word out. Let's find those people who would enjoy a show like this and who would benefit from a show like this, and let's get them watching. Sign up for the email list if you want. That's at my website, alwaysbetterchallenge.com. Haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with that yet, which is going to come as news to those of you who've already signed up. I think for now it's probably going to be a quick daily, maybe a little, here's what the show's about today, and maybe another quote, since I'm full of quotes, in case you haven't figured that out yet. Please keep the suggestions coming. Please keep the feedback coming. Please tell me what you think I can do better, what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show. Give it to me. I can take it. I promise. Give it to me. Be honest. Be straight. And let's not forget about social media. Well, I said you can share the show on social media. I'm also on all the social media channels. Now, I'm not going to say I'm active on them all yet. I'm still figuring some of that out, some of these new ones, but I'm on there. The other thing I want to mention that I did not mention yesterday, some of you may already know about this, is there is a Facebook group for fans of the show, viewers of the show. You can get to that by going on our Facebook page for the Always Better Challenge. And anyone who subscribes either to the show on YouTube or to the email list, you'll automatically be added to the group as well. Of course, you can unadd yourself if you don't want to be in there for some reason. But the group, just to tell you what that is, that's not about me, that's about you. I'll probably pop in there once a day and maybe ask a question, or again, throw a quote out there, I'm not sure what. But it's really for you guys to discuss with each other things about the show, and not about the show, but related to the topics of improvement, making your life better tomorrow. I've rambled long enough. Hopefully not rambled too much. Hopefully it was cohesive enough that it was watchable. Thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to talk to you tomorrow. See, I'm committing. I'm saying that. I'm going to be back tomorrow. Don't know what the show's going to be about yet. I'll figure that out. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a terrific day. I need a tagline. I haven't come up with a tagline yet. I'm trying to think of one right now. Challenge on. No, that's awful. I'll have to come up with something better than that. Thanks so much. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.